going to talk a little bit about the world of work in this session. And it's something that our CEO, Dr. Precious, has asked us to think about as well. The world is changing. There are opportunities. There are risks as well. And, you know, it's something I'm interested in, but it's not something I'm an expert on. So I'm very happy to have 3 people with me today who are going to unpack some of these concepts for you. And let me, without too much further ado, introduce them as well. So on my immediate right, Ntsako Baloy. He's a senior manager at Accenture, and he leads the Data and AI Capability and Innovation Center. Welcome, Ntsako.
Thank you.
In the middle, we have Kizito Okechukwu, who is the executive head of 22 on Sloan and co-chair of the Global Entrepreneurship Network Africa. Sorry, I stumbled there over your institution. Can we give a proper hand there as well? Thank you. And then on the far right, we have Dion Shangu. Dion is the Africa CEO of PricewaterhouseCoopers and was the first black South African CEO of PwC. Welcome, Dion. And you've brought your supporters, which is always a good thing. But they did also clap very enthusiastically when, in general, so thank you for that. Dion, I'm going to start with you. And I think there are 2 things for me. The one is the changing world of work, and the other one is what we can do to prepare ourselves for that. So if we first of all talk about the first part of that, when we talk about, I mean, I'm sure we've all had this. I was at the airport recently and I saw a book called The Rise of the Robots, for example. So what do we mean when we talk about the world of work changing, and should we be worried?
Yeah. Thank you, Len, and good morning, everybody. It's a privilege for me to be here this morning. The fascination with your question for me is about, you know, you may be sitting there thinking that these are difficult concepts for all of us, but let me actually share with you that even my own colleagues, my own partners at the organization where I work, they struggle with these same concepts as well. The reason why I say that is because the world is changing at a rapid rate, and all of us are struggling to keep up. And so you talk about what should we all be doing, what we should all be thinking about. It was alluded to in the previous panel discussion. All of us should be concerned about our ability to adapt, right? What does that mean at a practical level? We should have the type of mindset that gives us the ability to learn new things, to unlearn some of the old things that we've been taught, to relearn some of the old things that we've been taught. But ultimately, we all need to be able to adapt. The world is changing, Len. You hear a lot about the green economy. What does that mean? It means that there's a wave really across the world right now that most corporates are talking about sustainability. You talk about issues of ESG, environment, social, and governance. So some of what we should be thinking about is, how can I develop my skills? How can I upskill myself in order to be relevant in an economy that will be much more green in future? That is how the world of work is changing, and that is how we as employers are looking at potential new talent. It is about what relevant skills will you have for the future? What can you do today in order to put yourself in a position to be relevant?
Thank you, Dion. I mean, I couldn't help feeling a bit old-fashioned. I've noticed. I think I'm the first person who's pitched up here with with all of my questions written down. So we all do need to adapt and move with the times. And Ntsako, I want to come to you. You strike me as someone who's not afraid of technology. It's your field, it's your expertise. I think it might even be your passion. For someone like me, when I hear AI, I think I know what we're talking about, but then someone says generative AI, and I'm like, I'm not quite sure what the difference is. So should we be afraid of technology in terms of jobs, or do you think that we're going to be creating so many opportunities? If I can ask you to almost a little bit of a crystal ball kind of thing, because, you know, some people do say, oh, we're going to lose so many jobs, technology is more a threat. What's your feeling on the trends over the next few years?
Well, let's start with you before I talk to them. I think you should be worried.
Noted.
But not them, right?
All right.
I think we can almost go on a journey where we think about 10, 20 years ago when kids started playing with phones. Parents will say, oh, she's so smart. Hey, so good. Because technology was quite natural for this generation.
Yeah.
Right? So when we talk about challenges to do with technological integration and technological adoption, it's not so much for this generation. And I think I want this generation to own that when they walk into interviews. That this is not new for us. Yes, we might find the incumbents in the organizations we join worrying about technology, but that's not the type of problems this generation should worry about. In fact, you talk ChatGPT, you'll find that a couple of them have already tried using ChatGPT to kind of answer a couple of questions, because unlike, again, your generation that somebody was talking about Google earlier, they're way past that now. They want an essay written so that they can go and benchmark their own to say, okay, does it stack up, right? So I think this generation needs to understand that technology is to help enable our development. I think Doc earlier mentioned that we've got a lot of problems, and I think we should start off there. We've got enough problems and we need problem solvers. And part of that is getting people to embrace technology to help us solve those problems, because if we don't, here is where the problem will be, and this is where normally I like to take this conversation. If we become afraid of technology and are not at the forefront of technology, we end up being technology users. Something that is quite common. I think it's more within the trade union space where they talk about owning the implements or the means of work, right? And if this generation does not own the technology and own up to the technologies, they'll only become users, which is fine. It will help us execute and solve problems, but we'll then not get billionaires out of this crowd. And solving problems is what will create the kind of billionaires we want to help take Africa from its current situation to a higher height, because we understand the context of our problems and the solutions lie here, because combining technology and problems helps us to be able to solve problems much quicker. And it is that I think people should therefore not be afraid of technology for, and this generation is best placed for that.
Thank you so much. You've made me feel a bit behind the times, but I'm gonna work with that, and I'm going to inform myself as well. Kizito, I want to come to you. I want to leave enough time to talk about entrepreneurship and some of the work that you do. But before that, I think both sets of comments have focused on, let's call it a mindset. So how could we unpack a little bit more the mindset that enables someone to be comfortable with technology and emerging and accelerating technology and to benefit from it? So what is that mindset, and how do we ensure that our education system is producing it as well?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I think for me, the mindset, we should look at inquisitive mindset, right? A mindset that looks at, what does this mean? Why does this exist? You know, a mindset that looks at, like Nsako said, how can I solve this particular problem? I have a pain point in my family, in my community, in my city. How can I solve that? A mindset that is innovative. A mindset that is also thinking about the next person and not just about me. A mindset that is entrepreneurial. And a mindset that is exploratory, you know. I look at, I think most of you here, you came from different provinces. This is like an experiential learning. A mindset that comes to this place, meet their peers, look at challenges they're facing together and come together to solve it. A mindset that is not here to explore Sandton or Johannesburg. It's good to explore that, but always think, how can I make things better? How can I make my world better, my community better, my school better, my university better, my family better? And that is how even new businesses come about, you know? Even the AIs and all these technologies that everyone is talking about, it's all about people always thinking, how can I make things better? all of you have been in cars, you know about Elon Musk, you know about the electric cars. It's all about how can I make the car we are driving better? How can I make a human experience of driving better? And that is how also those initiatives come about. So if you ask me what mindset, I would say an inquisitive mindset, a mindset that is keen to explore, an innovative mindset, a mindset that is keen to also share ideas with other people, because sometimes we have ideas we bottle in ourselves. You'll be like, it's my idea. You must have a mindset that is open to sharing it. I can promise you, if you are the one that got that idea, you are the one that can only implement it. No one is capable of stealing your idea. So that is the mindset we need young people to have. That is the mindset that I should also have, to be able to be inquisitive and solve pain points and problems that we face in our communities.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dion, it's quite a specific question, because what struck me is that our conversation is sort of quite well aligned with the previous panel session, and it is about the digital economy, and it's about linking the digital economy, technology, and entrepreneurship. So if I'm a young person and I'm listening today and I'm thinking, okay, I'm comfortable with tech, I've heard Mpumi speak about disruption in an exciting way, I'm hearing what these guys are saying. Where do I start on this kind of journey? What would you say to me if I said, Dion, where do I start now? Okay, what do I do next week? Any advice?
Certainly. It's been said earlier today, the importance of having the right mindset, the importance of showing up, of going out there, of making sure you really try and get access to as much information as what you can. That's really, really key. I am conscious that not everybody will have the resources to be able to do that. In other words, not everybody will have money to buy data in order to be connected to the internet, and I get that. But ultimately, what you can do is to put yourself out there. That means really leverage all of your relationships, leverage whatever information that you can to make yourself known to as many organizations as possible. Ideally, those organizations that have some form of graduate recruitment or normal recruitment process, just so that you are in a form of database of someone out there and that you don't sit there alone. It's incredible how many companies out there are looking for people. And this is one of the great contradictions of our country. And in fact, I would take it as far as to say the continent. We have the youngest continent in the world, but yet many business leaders say they can't find the right type of people. Because even though we have an abundance of people, many of those people don't have the right type of skills that those leaders are looking for. And so in trying to get closer or nearer to as many organizations as possible, understanding what type of skills they are looking for, that then gives you a better opportunity to channel your strategy and make sure that what it is you do to upskill yourself will resonate with what organizations are looking for out there, and that it will be aligned to many of their needs. So really do as much research as you can afford, and try and get as much help as you can.
Thank you, Dion. Nsako, so I'm going to also pin you down a bit, because I really want us to give quite, to use this opportunity to give quite concrete tips. So let's say I'm not an entrepreneurial person, or I think I'm not, but I love technology and I want to study in a field that's going to give me a nice, exciting job in one of these areas, as Dion has indicated, where there are opportunities, where there are actually jobs available. Are there any specific parts of the digital economy that you would think of as being like a good prospect for me to study or to continue studying, whatever the case may be?
Let me start on a selfish note.
Absolutely.
I'm a computer scientist by trade, and therefore I'll say study that.
Computer science. Okay.
Study computer science, IT, information systems, informatics. It's a good space in the technological context. But I also want to say, one of the dangers that I think, or traps that people fall into, is just because you're studying medicine, you think technology is not relevant for you. And you get to work and you realize that there's technology everywhere. In fact, they want you to now start using VR headsets to practice performing an operation before we put you on the field, right? Now, the whole idea behind the doctor who's not the technologist, there's a disconnect. We had the same challenge, you'd know this, particularly in the accounting space, where accountants were numbers people. And they quickly found the likes of Pastel when the first day on the job, and Sage, and you name it. And they were now forced to pivot into that. Here's the thing. The fact that you're studying psychology or sociology or education does not mean you should not know about the other thing. In fact, I have seen some of the leaders that we have right now in industry leading in areas they have not studied. So one of the key things is in the space, in the qualification that you are studying for now, if you're already studying for towards something, John mentioned something. Make sure you study widely. There's a word I've seen young people mention a lot in interviews, being versatile. And that means if you're studying biochemistry, you are honest enough to understand that there's an ecosystem around biochemistry, and your entry point might not be biochemistry into a particular industry. And when you go into that interview and we see how well versed with the space you are, it makes it easy to be sellable, because remember, we look for people to solve problems and not so much for a computer scientist. Because, I mean, you can have, I've hired engineers on a traditional computer science role because I found them better suited to a role than a computer scientist that I just interviewed.
Thank you. I mean, I think that's what's really interesting for me about this conversation is when I think about the changing world of work, I think of changing jobs, but it sounds like it's a changing worker that's required. I mean, this is coming out of, or a different conception that we have of ourselves. And I think we've touched in a few of the comments on, let's call it almost like an entrepreneurial orientation. That's what I'm hearing from a lot of these comments. Kizito, I promised or threatened to come back to you and talk a little bit about the work you do in support of entrepreneurs. And I mean, if I say entrepreneurial orientation, and we've had some comments on that already, but what does that mean for you? What is an entrepreneurial orientation, and why is it important?
Yeah, thank you. I think my colleague Bongani was doing design thinking on the other workshop. I know some of you had the opportunity to be there. And I think entrepreneurial orientation for me is about two things. It's about opportunity and it's about problem solving. So as an entrepreneur, it cannot just be about you see opportunity to open another salon down the road and then you do it. It must also be like, what problem are you solving by opening it right here? And I think those are the two key things that are important for entrepreneurs to thrive. And I think within all this, I think as you embark on a journey to become an entrepreneur, it's all about listening to people, listening to other people. It's all about showing up. I think the previous speaker said it, my colleague also said it. It's all about showing up, because sometimes entrepreneurs, we get discouraged by certain unfortunate events within our journey. It could be you didn't have enough capital to continue your business. It could be you don't have enough family support. It could even be that government is not supporting me, and then you try to lose hope. For me, I believe that you should try 100 plus 1 times to be able to succeed. You should keep on trying. You should keep on pitching up. Never lose hope. You'll be surprised that is that last opportunity for you to pitch up that you missed was the opportunity that your business would have scaled. And this is evident also within our business with entrepreneurs we support. We know during COVID it was very hard for some of them. A lot wanted to give up. Even us, we wanted to give up our business because it became so difficult. We need to save ourselves first before we can save someone else. And it's all about holding on. And then just holding on creates a whole lot world that you would have never imagined, you know. So I would say, look at opportunity, look at problem solving, but keep on listening, keep on engaging, keep on showing up in everything that you do. No matter how boring you think that business event could have been, show up and listen to the people there, connect with the people there, because it's going to benefit you. I mean, people will know Dr. Precious. I've seen her a lot of places, and I keep showing up. I keep saying, hello, Dr. Precious. Keep showing up. One day, you never know, you know. And the guys from PwC Essential will also tell you the same. Their businesses is all about present something, present it again, present it again. And one day, you'll be surprised what could happen. So that is what entrepreneurial orientation is really all about, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Len, can I just
Go for it,
add
Dion.
something?
Yeah.
Kizito's touching on a very important point about problem solving. If problem solving is really the basis on which you venture into an entrepreneurial opportunity, I had the privilege recently of listening to the gentleman who started this app called Waze. It's a traffic management, traffic navigation app that I'm sure many people in the room use. And it took him years to get Waze to a format or version that people could actually use. And he has a saying that actually stuck with me. And I thought I would share it today in the context of what Kizito's just said. And he said, fall in love with the problem, right? Fall in love with the problem. If you really do want to solve a problem of whatever size, whatever complexity, fall in love with it and make it your love's work to actually solve that problem. And I promise you, then there will not be a shortage of people who will be willing to back you and to invest in your idea. So I just thought I would add that to what Kizito said. It's very, very important.
Fantastic. I mean, it just strikes me, for each of the sessions so far, we've had one beautiful phrase that I hope works for you guys as well. We had God is love. We had the beauty of disruption. Well, that one, I seem to remember that one in the previous session. And now we have fall in love with the problem as well. So I do want to urge you to please send through your questions. We sincerely want your questions, and we have this immense knowledge on stage for a little while longer. So I'm going to just throw some questions that we have received at you. The first one is, and let's go to you, Zako, is there a future in remote work? And before you jump in there, I think, Kizito, you mentioned COVID, and we all had different experiences with remote study, remote work, etc. But I think this is an interesting question if we're talking about changes in work. Is there and in COVID times we were all talking more about, remote work is permanently changing things. What do you think, Ntsako?
A lot of research has been done in this space, particularly with the dawn of COVID, where people were fully at offices, whether it be client offices or their own offices. And COVID hit, some were not prepared, some were, but everybody had to go online, right? And we have seen a trend recently where there's a hybrid way of work. So remote work seems to stick around, but in a sense that there seems to be a need to balance the human contact. So going to client offices or to the office twice or 3 times a week, and then maybe working another 2 days remotely. So if you want to think about full-blown remote work, most companies are moving away from that. And that's because during COVID, people felt removed from colleagues and discussions. And people who joined organizations during COVID didn't meet anyone from an organization. And clients also kind of want to have that personal engagement. So we're seeing more hybrid becoming the norm than full-on remote. So it doesn't look like in the foreseeable future we're going to see remote work go away completely. But perhaps there's another angle where global organizations have gone out to look for skills in markets that align to their time zones or are cheaper. So if you look at Europe, we're very much aligned to, like the UK, to their time zones and so forth. you find that they would be happy to have a data scientist sitting out of South Africa servicing clients out of UK. So that form of remote work will continue.
Thank you.
I just want to add
Please go for it,
something.
Kizito,
And
yes.
these are the two important colleagues next to me, Accenture and PwC. They do all this research for corporates. And remote work, like you said, brilliant, it's going to continue. But I want us to also think of, I think one of the challenges I've seen with it is that a lot of young people need Ntako next to them at the office to mentor them. They're coming out of varsity, they come into the office, and Ntako is not there. And how do we transfer that knowledge? And I know the two experts, this PwC and Accenture, needs to also guide big corporates to say, how do we ensure that young people still get the mentorship they deserve? Because I know that if I was working remotely when I get out of university, I can't even use Excel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But those experiences help me, and I think we need to think about that. With your help, advise your clients to think, how do we ensure that our young people still get the mentorship, even with remote work happening,
Maybe let me touch a bit on this, because we're also going through a phase in our own organization where, for the most part, we're remote. Remember, there was a shift and a disruption that happened from full office space to online. People said, how are we going to survive? CEOs worrying that people are not going to work, And then people worked. And in fact, people started to work 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we saw a lot of returns. Not always good, which is why we're in a mental health session. But here's the thing. We then had to go back to people and said, can we come back to office? And people said, what? we have reorganized our lives around working from home. So I know I can go pick up my child, drop them, still assist my granny, etc. Now you want us to come back to work. Now, we then had to have a discussion around, look, there's need to balance, one, what organizations need, what clients need, and what individual employees need. So, which is why it seems that we are converging more towards the hybrid way of work, because you'll get that mentorship. Not every day, maybe 2 less days, but you still get it. And we'll still get to somehow address my grandmother, whom I have to look after as I work, and say, be right back.
Yeah.
So that is kind of the trend that we're seeing right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kizito and Ntako. Dion, I want to come to you with another audience question, which is on an unrelated matter, but it's a question of how do we, actually it's related in the sense that mentoring has come up now, but I wanted to probe that a bit more, which is how do we, because the question is really how can I, as a young person, find mentoring opportunities? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. So this is someone who's maybe coming back to my beginning entrepreneur who recognizes the importance of mentoring.
Yeah.
What can one do to seek out mentoring?
Sure. The very important question. And the first step, I guess, is being proactive. And I say that very easily, understanding that it's not easy for everybody to put themselves out there, to be brave enough to approach someone. But my experience generally is that to be asked to be a mentor is such a privilege, so much so that it is very difficult to say no. And so I would encourage the individual asking the question to say, if there is somebody who you find inspiring, somebody whom you look up to, simply approach them, work up the courage to go and ask them, would you mind being my mentor? And by the way that mentorship works is that you don't only have one mentor, you can have more than one mentor. And so if you are lucky enough to have contact with or to be exposed to as many inspirational leaders as possible, whom you know, sometimes you may not even know them, but have a way of contacting them. Simply approach them. The worst that can happen is that they can say no, but even that is very, very seldom. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So a last audience question, and sort of before I give each of you a bit of a chance to make a wrap-up comment, is do we have enough diversity and inclusion in the technology space? And does it matter? And if it does matter, do we need to do anything about it? Sorry, that's a complicated question, but I think you get the gist. Kizito, can I come to you first if you have any thoughts on that?
I think diversity, inclusion, one could ask what builds innovation ecosystems. So look at a lot of ecosystems, and when I mean ecosystems, I mean like startup ecosystem around the world. A lot of them thrive on diversity, on inclusion, on availability of capital, on exits of the startups, and blah, 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 and so on, right? And in Africa, I would say, we don't have enough of that, right? In ecosystems around the world, you can look at your Silicon Valleys and so on. They have mastered how to ensure that their ecosystem is inclusive and is diverse enough. If you go to a Silicon Valley, you will see your Kenyans, your Nigerians, your Ghana, your China, your this, your that, your female, your males, and so on. Yes, there might not be a lot of females in the technology space, receiving funding or so. Maybe they are there, but not a lot of them could be raising capital as much as we know. But that dynamic has changed over the years. So if you ask me about if we, even in our startup campus, we don't have enough of that. I think in our whole program, we could have only 2 tech startups that are female, which is sad. We've put out a call at some stage, and maybe partnering with organizations, various other organizations, could help us attract those kind of startups. But we've also faced our own challenge in terms of how diverse are our startups, and how inclusive it is. And sometimes it's not by choice that those things happen. And maybe we have not made a lot of effort to ensure that it's that way. But I think diversity and inclusion are actually critical for an innovation ecosystem to thrive. You want to be able to work with someone from Botswana. You want to be able to work with a woman and a male. You want to be able to work with anyone that you can think of, from different religion, different beliefs, and so on. So I think we still have a long way to go. I think we might be getting there, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
Thank you so much. Nsako or Dion, if you have anything to add? I think it was well responded, but you are free to add. Dion, go for it.
I can add this, that we are starting to see that there's a much greater emphasis being placed on inclusion than diversity. Diversity is easier to achieve, right? There's this saying that diversity is like being invited to the party. Inclusion is somebody at the party actually asking you to dance, right? And so it's good enough to have the stats, but how do you make everybody feel at home? How do you make everybody feel valued and valuable at the same time? Make them feel that they are contributing. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, Nsako, are you happy? Anything to add on that?
Maybe let me start off by throwing a bit of stats out there without putting out the numbers. My team is more female than male, and I lead a tech capability. So I think a shift there, and I would like to keep those numbers that way.
We can applaud that.
I think we have to be intentional around issues of inclusion and diversity. We have to intentionally create opportunities, because as far as I remember it, especially let's talk the male-female discussion, as far as I remember it, ladies used to show us flames in class. I then wondered, how did it change that there were more male leaders and getting senior positions and so forth in industry than the opposite, because they used to show us flames, like for real. At least in my class, the classes that I attended, that's how I remember it, right? But I think on a more serious note, I think issues around diversity and inclusion, whether you look at it from a work point of view or from a business point of view, these are issues that we need to be intentional about them, so that we're also able to get, if you think about the kind of problems we want to solve, You will not be able to solve sometimes some of the problems if you have not had the experience. And by being diverse and inclusive, you get to tap into a market you've not been able to tap to, solve problems you were not even aware they existed, and that grows your share in terms of the type of business you do, but also the impact. Because one of the things that's happening today is that we realize that people are no longer just about money. They want to make impact. The type of employees who are employing today, they want meaning out of their job because it will demand a lot. And to do that, we need to be inclusive and diverse.
Thank you so much. All right, I think we are sort of beginning to wrap up this session, so I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. We can start with you, Dion. Give us one, maximum 2 sentences on what excites you about the changing world of work. And I'm going to give you each the same question. What excites you about the changing world of work, Dion?
What excites me, Len, is that the possibilities are endless. And it is exactly, the young people we have in the room that will continue to challenge the status quo, that will make us reevaluate what we know, whether it's still relevant, and how we can do things differently and better into the future.
Thank you so much. Kizito.
Thank you. And I must say, I will change the question a bit. I will talk more of your entrepreneurial journey. I think that most of you are in university or so, and you're already entrepreneurial. You're writing thesis or assignment for people and getting paid for that. That is how you make some side money and so on. Some of us did that. I'm not saying I did. I'm saying some of us. But I'm just saying that think entrepreneurial, look at problems, look at opportunities, and then solve those issues, And don't wait till you have R1 million in your bank account. You can start small, as you're already doing, within your community, within your city, within your family. And then share ideas with your people, with your family, with your peers. But lastly, show up. Keep showing up and don't relent.
Thank you so much. Tsako.
Being a former-ish academic, I'll say don't write other people's assignments.
Good practical advice.
Yeah, you'll get expelled. But anyways.
There's ChatGPT now.
We used to talk about, a few years ago, we used to talk about the digital divide. I think we've gone a little bit past that now. But that is the good thing about where we are today, and these are the ways I want to live with everyone here. Through technology, anyone sitting here can become an entrepreneur, a brand, and anything they want using even just their phone. We're talking about content creation. We're talking about people who are going around building websites. You name it. You can turn your passion into a vocation because of technology without even having to leave the shack. You can generate content that will reach in an instant the USA. It's about being able to appreciate the fact that the power is now literally in our hands, and we've got a lot of tech millionaires for a good reason. It's because you combine psychology, and you had somebody here, you combine psychology and the phone, and all of a sudden you become an influencer. And it's brilliant, and we want you to do that. And let's have more people do that. In whatever corner, in whatever way that you see yourself mixing your passion or your whatever you're studying or what you're passionate about with technology, and try bring out something new, because there are 2 ways you make money in this world. High level. 1 is you solve problems. 2 is you create demand.